Okay, I'm starting the recording, and thank you all for joining the virtual cafe. Betsy will be here shortly, and Elmer that has planned the student panel and about engagement. Elmer, it's all yours.
All right, thank you, Joyce. So good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. And then also thank you to Harmon College, Joyce and Betsy for letting me crash your virtual cafe. So what I'm gonna do is, this is what I have planned. I'm gonna ask the students so they know, or hopefully they prepared ahead of time, they know the answers to the questions, but I'm gonna ask them 4 questions after they introduce themselves. And so we'll go through those questions, and each one will have an opportunity to answer. And then as they're speaking, this will be the time for you to think about questions you might have. And so you could hold that for the end of the session. Is that right, Joyce? Is that how we want to do it? Okay. And then you could also put your questions on the chat so that we could prepare for that also. So we have 4 students the last time I looked. So what I'll just go ahead and do is ask each one of you to take turns introducing yourselves. So I'll just go ahead and call you by name just so I don't miss anybody. So Gabby, you want to start? Please tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah. I'm Gabby. I'm an English major and senior this year. Is there anything else, honestly?
That's good. That's good. Just just so we have an idea of who we're listening to. What about you, Hunter?
How's it going? Like I said, I'm Hunter. I graduated this past May, and as a criminal justice major, and I've been taking online classes through UCM since my junior year of high school, probably, so like 2015, 2016, and I've probably taken in total about 15 to 20 online courses through UCM.
Okay, great. What about you, Molly?
I'm Molly. I am a graduate student with the Human Development and Family Science with a specialization in marriage and family therapy. And I've taken about 10 online courses.
Okay, great. And then lastly, Catherine, you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Catherine, I think you're, there you go.
Okay. Yes, I'm Catherine. I also graduated in May. I'm an English Bachelor of Arts major. And in total, I think.
Okay, can't hear you very well, Catherine.
Hello, Mom. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Can we hear her or?
Negative.
Can't hear her. No.
Okay, Catherine. We're having technical issues, I guess. So how did you want to proceed? I could go ahead and ask the next question then, just to keep moving. Sorry, Catherine, but hopefully you can get your audio working. But if not, just maybe you could chat with us or whatever, or just whatever. So moving on. This is live TV, right? So we just go with the flow. So I'll ask my first of 4 questions. This first question is, what activities or assignments worked really well for online learning? And so I'll let you all just kind of answer that. Or would you like for me to call each one of you individually, or you just want to go ahead and jump? All right, so Hunter, it looks like you're ready.
Yeah, so sorry, I got my notes here on my phone. So discussion boards that weren't super cheesy worked really well, I think. It's kind of a fine balance there, but when there was a good engagement between the instructors and the students and a little bit back and forth, that was super helpful, as well as like virtual presentations and PowerPoints over specific topics within maybe to get into something in a little bit more detail. and then reading the other people's virtual presentations and PowerPoints, I think was something that I really enjoyed doing and reading about.
Okay, great. Molly?
So it seems like Hunter kind of stole some of my answers there. I have to agree with presentations. And in general, I think using the Zoom platform is super helpful in cases where it can be used. I know not every professor or every class is available through Zoom, but just having that connection and that engagement is really helpful. And like Hunter said, presentations, and again through the Zoom, doing the screen share and presenting. And then instead of having like an assignment tab where you can submit, I think when you submit like assignments through the discussion board, so students like interact on assignments, not just straight discussions, like actual papers or whatever for your assignment. I think going in and doing that is really helpful in the engagement.
Okay, great. Thank you. Catherine, are you able to, is your audio working now? Okay, well,
Yeah.
moving on then. Gabby.
Yeah, I would say that asynchronous meeting worked best for me, mostly because I ended up having to move back home, and I love my parents, but they bust in the door every 2 seconds, and my house is just very loud, so it was better to have all the materials I needed and be able to work it into my schedule as I saw fit. I did have some classes that like met via Zoom, but there were a lot of people that just didn't show up, or if they did show up, we had a lot of technical difficulties, and everyone just kind of got frustrated, and it was harder to learn, is what I found. I will say I did have Professor Ragus. The way that you set up, you had like a tutorial kind of how to do things, and then an assignment that we did ourselves, the class I had. And those are pretty much my thoughts on it.
Okay, great. So my next question then for everybody is, what were some of the challenges you faced as an online student? So Molly.
So my first online class was definitely a learning curve for me. I think I took my first online class my either end of sophomore year or beginning of junior year of my undergrad. And I am not a planner, and I definitely learned for online classes that you have to have that self-initiative. And so, just for me being on top of my stuff and not having someone there to remind me all the time. And I definitely learned that getting to know your syllabus is very beneficial. So that was definitely one of the challenges for me, just kind of learning to do things on my own instead of like in person where there's somebody there constantly helping you out.
Okay. Gabby. What about you, Gabby? Still there? Or Hunter? Go ahead.
I'm here. So a similar thing. I think I really struggled with like they're either inconsistent due dates where things they changed and we're not notified enough or something like that, or just like if there's something due in April where the only place that the professor said it was due in April was in the syllabus. That's 4 months apart. I'm super forgetful. I know a lot of students are. And so when professors didn't have at least a little bit of reminder at some point, a week or two out from the due date, or, just a little bit more consistency in keeping students advised of any like upcoming assignments, tests, quizzes, making sure that your expectations are understood beyond just read the syllabus, because that's kind of a cop-out answer. So just having the part of it's on the students, but if you can create some more consistent reminders and consistent scheduling, and making sure everybody knows of any schedule changes, that would really, I think, help students be a lot more successful.
Okay, great. Thanks, Hunter. Gabby, how about you?
I will say for one of the online class, it was like partially online, but you can use the calendar feature where it will be, and you could look at like visually. I have just to actually see it and not like put all the pressure of remembering it on yourself is helpful. I will say you have to be motivated yourself, and that is kind of difficult sometimes, but those small things like that organization method help me to stay motivated. Then I know that we're both on the same page.
Could you repeat that part about what you said? Because you were kind of cutting off, or at least from my end, you were about motivation?
You have to be really self-motivated in online courses. And I know that the calendar feature that one professor had used, like she used Google Calendars and she used Blackboard calendars and she made them sync. And she was like, you use whichever one you want, just pay attention to it. That helped me because that small piece of like her putting in a little more effort helped me to not get as overwhelmed, because I could look at that schedule and see these are all of the things I need to do.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so that was the question about challenges you face as an online student. So we'll move on to the next question then, third out of 4 questions. So what do you think would help with meeting the challenges that you talked about? So since I already have you, Gabby, let's start with you.
I think it would definitely help to have those features like the calendar, and I know someone else already mentioned it, but with like the syllabus, that is kind of a cop-out answer. And especially whenever all of the communication is so difficult because it's all online, you have to work harder to communicate the things you do. I know there are some professors that I've had that emailed us like 4 times a week. That's overwhelming. Please don't do that to your students, just because it's too much. If you want to email out like a schedule of this is what our week looks like, that's totally cool. But I had a professor emailing me almost daily, and it was really, really overwhelming.
Okay, and you actually answered one of the questions that somebody posted, is how many reminders are appropriate. So thank you for that. What about you, Hunter?
So granted, I took all my online classes pre-Rona, so like maybe this is already a thing, but I think I would have benefited a lot in the age of Zoom meetings for everything and video chat being so easy. If professors just had a weekly or bi-weekly like video chat session, like Zoom session, like, and don't make it mandatory, just say, hey, I'm going to be on Zoom for the next 5-10 minutes, lay out, of what the week's going to look like, take care of any reminders, changes, and then just give students after that a option to like, what do you need clarification on? What questions can I answer? I think that would be super helpful for those who want it. Because I mean, online classes, you get what you put in. So, you can't force people to do it, but I think just having that available would be super helpful. And even just like a weekly email, like here's what the next week looks like, or here's what the next 2 weeks looks like. 1 or 2 emails a week, I think, is a perfectly normal, and it would be super helpful for students.
Okay, great. Thank you. Molly.
I have to agree with Hunter. In one of my courses that I took this summer, my professor every Sunday night would post a link and was like, here's the assignments for the week. And so that kind of helps me realize like what was due that week. And then also me looking at my syllabus. And I've also had professors have like Google Hangouts or Zoom available if you had questions on something. And I know I've had a lot of professors that if I were to reach out, they would make it option. Like if I had any questions, it could either be email, Zoom, Hangout, whatever was beneficial for me and my professor to communicate it, not just using virtual Zoom as the only option or email. Just kind of having both is helpful.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so this is my last official question then, and this is for everybody. Is there anything else I didn't ask you that you would like for us to know? So since I already got you, let's start with you, Molly.
Yes, I actually thought of another benefit or positive after I was passed. But I know in some of my classes, just the everyday assignments, they had those links available throughout the semester. So I could work ahead or choose to work at the pace of the syllabus. So that was really helpful. If I knew in my other classes I was going to be busy one week, I could double up in my online class if that was available to me. And so that was very beneficial for me.
Okay, great. That's a good point. Hunter, what about you?
So something that I guess I kind of had issues with over the last 3 years was I felt like a lot of times professors either cared too much and were super overbearing, or didn't care enough and then didn't offer enough support. And there's a fine line kind of between expecting too much and then not expecting enough from online students that I think is sometimes a little bit hard to manage. And so, yeah, I either had professors who were super overbearing or completely unbothered. And that really detracted from my overall education. And I think finding that happy medium where you're there to help, but you're not forcing help down students' throats, I think that is really the peak of online education.
Okay, find a happy medium. Okay, thank you, Hunter. Gabby, what about you?
I think it's really important, especially like now that the coronavirus has kind of like changed the entire world, to just kind of check in with students. Like I had some professors that were very much like, I don't care. I don't want to talk to you about anything. And they wouldn't respond to your emails even if you were like polite. And then I also had professors that were immediately like, yeah, like, what do we need to talk about? Like, how can I make this easier for you? But like the ones that don't want to help you kind of overshadow the ones that do want to help you. And typically the classes where I got most of the help in were the ones that I wasn't really struggling in.
Okay. And Catherine, I know just before I close it, oh, okay, she was typing something. So Catherine, our fourth student participant, was having technical difficulties, but she shared something with me. So let's see. She said that it would be good to know, for everybody to know, that often with online classes, students can feel isolated or may not have internet access. So that's something to keep in mind. But good communication from UCM and teachers really helped Catherine stay connected. So there's that communication piece again. So thank you, Catherine. All right, so at this point, it's 2:20 p.m. I've asked all the questions that I wanted to ask our students, and now I want to open it up for everybody to ask our students while they're here, or yeah, for you all to ask our students questions that you might have that we didn't cover or anything like that. So does anybody have any questions?
Shannon has a question in the chat already about
Okay.
how many reminders would be appropriate.
So let me say something about that part. So, you know, for me personally, as the person teaching, like when I think about my personal life, I know that it's always helpful to get reminders myself. So it's not that we're babying our students or not making them responsible, but you know, even I need reminders myself. So it's definitely helpful. But students, do you all have a comment about that or any more to say about that? I know you kind of addressed it already.
I would say like 2 reminders a week. Try to limit yourself to that. And if it's like a big thing, totally remind us. Like if there's a giant paper due at the end of the week, feel free to bug me about that. I just had professors that would be like, small 5-point assignments would email you 4 times a week about the same 5-point assignment. And that's kind of a lot because then you put too much pressure into that 5-point assignment that's really not going to make or break you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say,
Go ahead. Hunter, you were saying something?
sorry, my internet cut out. One, like, weekly is easy. Like, if you schedule the week out, send an email on Monday or Tuesday, say here's the week, and then just update us to something changes. I think that's usually a pretty good schedule where we don't get overwhelmed or annoyed. But I would say err on the side of send the reminder anyway, because at most we're minorly inconvenienced. But on the other spectrum, we could be huge. So.
And Catherine, one of our student participants, she sent me a message. She said about the same thing that you all have said so far. She appreciated a reminder each week just to keep assignments on her mind, especially about assignments like projects or papers. So it's really something really helpful for our students. And Molly, did you have something to say?
Yeah, I think it's kind of beneficial too if a student emails a question to the professor about like a big assignment or just anything in the course in general. Like if you think it's something that other students in your class may have a question on, to kind of send an email or to send like a notification or an email out to the whole class regarding it. Because I know there's been times where I've questioned something, but somebody else had already asked it, and so then our professor sent a notification about it, and so I got my answer solved without me feeling like I was bugging my professor or something like that.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Molly. Joyce, did I miss any questions in the chat?
No, I do have a question. I would like to know. I think Hunter mentioned that you say discussion is good as long as it's not cheesy. Could you give example? What would be like not cheesy? I want to hear from the students. What would be cheesy, I guess? What would be a cheesy discussion?
So, like, I would say something like super basics. A lot in criminal justice, it would just be like restate the exact thing or whatever in the book and then talk about it. And a lot of people, I guess it never really gets talked about. And so figuring out a way to word your discussion board questions in a way that generates conversation, which is not always easy to do. And so it's not a ton of pressure, but gearing your discussions in a way to create a back and forth, maybe in the wording of the question or specifically asking that question, that student to elaborate, I think is super helpful in generating discourse about whatever you're trying to talk about.
And other students?
I was gonna kind of say the same thing as Hunter. Like I've had a class where it was just like pick a discussion question out of the textbook and go more into detail about it, and it's like kind of seems like a high school thing to do. Like I just think instead of doing that, like more of a discussion, not just straight out of the textbook, kind of forcing us to talk about our opinions and thoughts and ideas, not just straight from the book, if that makes sense.
Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, Joyce, looks like there's a question from Trang. So this is her question. Do you like using the discussion board? And then do you find any advantages or disadvantages in the discussion board?
I think that the discussion board can be helpful, but I do know at one point for my online course, we had to do 15 discussion boards a week. Like, and that was just a lot because they were also due like half of them were due on Tuesday at midnight,
but they didn't open it until like Monday night. Then you had to come up with 5 things off the top of your head in one entire day. And it was just like the way that they were timed was very stressful. So like if you were to do a discussion board, maybe don't set such a short time period on it if you want good discussion.
I think she just hit on a big point that I kind of forgot to mention. Over having too many discussion boards, like just a small discussion board about this or this or this or this, try and combine them into one because it overwhelms us. And usually, like, even if we can go into more detail on one thing or another, having 15 discussion boards in 1 week is not helpful for overall education. And so I enjoy discussion boards. I thoroughly enjoy when students actually talk to each other on there because that doesn't happen very often. But when you actually have a good discussion, I think it's a really good educational tool.
Okay. And Catherine had a response to that. You all could probably see it if you look at the chat, but I'll just go ahead and say it real quick. So Catherine thinks a discussion board is useful for material that is controlled, such as a specific question, or for even smaller peer reviews on writing. But discussion boards are not always easy to filter visually, so they can be overwhelming if there are too many. So that seems to be the consensus here is, you know, keep it focused, keep it something that's relevant. All right, so the next question I see is a question from Shannon. Has anyone used Slack in your classes before? No? Okay.
I've not used Slack.
Okay. All right, so here's the next question. And so I know we're kind of running out of time here. This one's from Donald. If there's a weekly assignment due the same time every week, like Mondays at midnight, are reminders still helpful or is it unnecessary?
I definitely think it's a lot less necessary than other assignments. But like if you're sending like a week in advance where there's other like a weekly schedule or something like that, if you're sending that already, why not throw it on there? But I mean, we don't need specific reminders about it past the first or second week because then we probably got the hang of it.
Yeah, I would just say like the first few weeks so that you can kind of understand the pattern and maybe even communicate that there's a pattern, because I've had some professors that don't outright say that. And I would catch on to it, but there would be other people that were like, I missed it. How did everybody else know it was there? So maybe you just communicate it the first few weeks and say, this is my set pattern. I've also had professors that have a set pattern and then halfway through completely change set pattern. So then you would have to.
Did you have a question?
No, I was wondering if how many faculty are using the Harmon College of Business online teaching template for their classes? Because during this conversation, I've been seeing there's so much of confusion about the number of reminders and so on. If faculty were to follow the Harmon College of Business template, which I've used twice already, and I found it to be very consistent, and it lays out all the tasks for the week for students in one place and only one place, and we don't need to send multiple reminders. I have it open on my screen now. I can just share it quickly so that for those students who probably haven't had this, may be able to give their feedback on what they think.
I think we are almost out of time. So yeah.
Okay.
Maybe just very, very, very quickly, like 30 seconds.
So if everything is there in one place like this, where you have the goals of the week, the readings or tasks which have to be accomplished, and whatever is due in terms of deadlines, everything could be easier and we could avoid repetitive communication.
Yeah, so I've never had a professor ever show me that, I don't think, over the 3 years I've been here. So I think that's super helpful. And I think it would limit the necessity for reminders as long as it's everything present there.
I do have to say, I think a lot of people are going to struggle coming at because Blackboard did change its layout. I know when I logged in, I was super confused on how to use it. So I think that'll be a challenge for everybody because, you know, of course, right when you get it figured out, it changes. So
Yes, yeah, that's for sure. I saw that we're almost out of time. And Betsy, did you have some reminder for us?
Classes start Monday, a week from today. Not that you all didn't know that, but yeah, no reminders. Just we're here for support for, you know, Joyce and I, Harmon, and then Elmer, I know you're CHST, so don't ever, you know, rely on your colleagues, rely on us. So we're here for you. And I can't thank our students enough for being here. This is awesome of you guys. Thank you. Thank you very much. Elmer, thanks for facilitating today as well.
And, you know, I want to look through the chat again to make sure I caught all the questions. I know there was one from Jeremy, and I'm sorry we're out of time, but perhaps I could send an email to our students to see if they have an answer to that, and we'll send it on to everybody. So thank you for your participation, everybody. Hunter, Molly, Catherine, Gabby. So
Thanks for allowing us to give feedback. We feel a lot more heard. I like this. This is a good thing. You guys should keep doing it.
All right.
I say thank you to the students because I absolutely love that we're hearing from you guys. So thank you very much for this information and taking your time and everything else. Love it.
Thank you. Thank you all. All right, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.